Jumbo Scampi. For limited...
All for a price that will make you...
How the hell am I supposed to pee?
You're listening to BAMF, UK Comic Book Radio.
Hello everybody, and you are listening to BAMF Comic Book Radio, the weekly comic podcast with news, reviews and odd points of views. I am your host, Lucas Maxted. With me today we have Bertie Kempson, say hello.
Hello.
We got Captain Nevs, say hello.
Hello.
And with us again, we have Sarah from Saranga Comics. Say hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Okie doke. Alright, well let's get straight into it. Over to the news with Nevs.
Hello everyone, and this is the news. There are lots of news this week, so I'm going to start with my favourite bit of news, being the grand old man of the show. I'm a big fan of the 1960s Batman TV show, and really excited for the Batman 66 series that's launching quite soon. But even more exciting than the comic for me, as someone who's sworn off buying any toys ever about 6 or 7 years ago, is the Batman 66 action figures. These things are gorgeous. They look like a combination of the Mego dolls of the time, but they've also got really nice articulation. The likenesses of Frank Gorshin and Julie Newmar and Adam West are bang on, and I suspect there'll be a limited amount of you who will get this. But there's a Surf's Up Batman action figure variant, which is, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, it's Batman in his normal costume, but wearing a pair of Bermuda shorts, and he comes with a Batman surfboard, which is a big yellow surfboard with a bat logo on it. And they look so amazing.
That sounds absolutely fantastic.
I really can't actually express my joy that these things are being made. I'm so bored of angry, gritty Batman now. So yeah,
Batman better.
Surfing Batman is probably the greatest variation on the theme ever, and I can't say enough good things about him. And if Warner Brothers want to send us money, if I mention them every show, then I have no problem doing that whatsoever. So
I have to agree with you. It'll be nice to see like a change from just, like you said, gritty, dark, people getting, cut up and faces removed Batman to bat shark repellent and surfboards.
Everything is better with a surfboard, especially Batman. Second bit of news again for the older readers and listeners rather is fans of the cult TV show Ren and Stimpy might be interested to know that the creator of it, John Kay, also did a comic in the mid-90s right after he had his famous spat with MTV about the content of the show, and it was originally released by Marvel, and it was called just Spumco Comic Book, and this thing was humongous. It was like, trying to think of a comic in relation to dimensions, like a Barry Windsor Smith Storyteller, or Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot, that kind of size. And it came out for like 30 seconds, and as every retailer will tell you, anything that mucks about with the formats is always a nightmare. So all the copies in shops just got battered and stuff, and they've been pretty much impossible to find ever since in any kind of decent condition. And honestly, I've spent the last 15 years or so looking around comic marts. I've probably seen about 1 or 2 copies of these things, so they are incredibly difficult to get hold of. And IDW Publishing are reprinting all of it as a 160-page hardcover with new strips which have never been published before. There's a preview now on the IDW homepage which has got a preview of the new strips. And the whole thing's going to be, $30? $30, or you can pre-order it for $23. So that's a classic bit of comic literature that people would want, available quite soon in an affordable format. People have been following the news this week might have already guessed where I'm going with this, because on the other end of the spectrum, just to make sure we get completely kicked off any chance of being on the Titans Comics comp list, Titan are reprinting the lost Grant Morrison classic Zenith, which ran in 2000 AD in the 80s and early 90s, and is credited as one of the great, British comics that went over to the UK and was establishing people over there. Brendan McCarthy had a hand in it as well, doing character designs and stuff. And, I bought them originally as they came out, and they are fantastic comics, and the final story that involves him having an affair with Britney Spears is great stuff, right?
Really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, wow.
He shows up at number 10 and, the Prime Minister's like, where have you been? He's like, I'm really sorry, I was shagging Britney Spears, I lost track of time.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's like really, really good Grant Morrison. I think we've discussed previously that much like Mark Miller, you know, there's a Grant Morrison who did like Kill Your Boyfriend and Doom Patrol and all those, and All-Star Superman, all that really good stuff. And then you get the guy who's like kind of hacking out Action Comics and Batman and stuff. And you're like,
JLA stuff.
the JLA stuff, yeah, I thought the art on that was great and the concepts are fantastic as well. But the plots are, you know, I think I've said this before. With
Really
Grant,
weak.
sorry.
It just came across as really weak. I recently this week I reread with some JLA stuff, and it's just, as you say, it's got good ideas, but something about it just doesn't really spark, and it doesn't flow, and it's just dull. It's not being done by the numbers. But yeah, his other stuff, his off-the-wall stuff, is much, much better.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel bad besmirching the bloke in any way, because, you know, one of my favourite single comics of all time is St. Swithin's Day, which is just a kid who's incredibly depressed and decides he's going to try and kill Margaret Thatcher. I think it either ran in like Crisis or Deadline or possibly in Trident magazines, one of those really good British magazines that launched up people like Mark Miller and stuff. And I think it's an incredible shame that something this high quality, first off, I'm speaking as a fan. This is a thing that should have been in print ages ago, and it's one of those things that should be sitting on the shelves, you know, next to your All-Star Supermans and your Doom Patrols and such like, and your JLA Earth 2s, because it's cracking stuff, and Steve Yoel turns in such a good art job on it, and he's really one of those people who ought to have been up there with your Glenn Fabry's and your Steve Dillons, because he's really incredibly good artist. But it's coming out in this incredibly awkward £100 hardcover, which contains the whole thing, which originally, like, oh good, we don't have enough big heavy books out there on the shelves like your Lost Girls books or that kind of thing. You're like, £100 for one thing. But then speaking from a retail point of view, it becomes even more aggravating, because this is the thing Titan could have done. Again, this is just my opinion. This is the thing they could have done, where they could have put out 5 or 6 trades, staggered them out, and then volume 1 here, put it out for a tenner, people get into it, like, oh, that's quite cool. Those kind of sequential multi-volume books, like your Fables, or your Sandmans, or your Invisibles, or your Doom Patrols, or your Transmetropolitans, or your Preachers, those things are great, because they're just like that's a really good incentive to come back into a comic shop and go, oh, have you got the new volume of that? Yeah, have you tried this? Yeah, and it works incredibly well, and it's the thing Titan really could have done with, because I can't speak for other shops. I know the Case Files and the Bad Company books and the Nemesis the Warlocks, they're great material, but they just don't have one thing that makes them, like, sell for whatever reason. I think Zenith would have been that thing that put them over. And that's really infuriating and strikes me as an incredibly wasted opportunity on their part. But also the second and more aggravating thing is they're doing this so you can order it from, I think it's like the 1st of July or something like that. And the orders start shipping from the 1st of December, and they're only available from the general public to their website. And that's it. They're not being offered by Diamond or any other comics distributor. They're just being being given to the public from the Titan website. Thus, cutting all the retailers out of the equation unless we go to the website and buy them the same way as you can. And you know,
for the same price.
For the same price, there's only going to be about 1,000 of these printed. So basically, you know, this is going to be bought up by speculators, and it's going to be on eBay within March, maybe April, going for £500, and that's it. And that, as of the recording of this show, and I don't know what's going to happen between now and this actually going out, they haven't announced any other format or any other way of releasing it. So it's kind of a wasted opportunity. And the other thing is, it doesn't seem to be 100%. I don't believe at time of recording either Grant or Brendan or Steve have said anything that would suggest they're actually okay with this. Because the thing with previous Titan publications was they just own the material outright. So they can put out Judge Dredd or The Iron Coach or Strontium Dog or such like as when is their win. But with this, Grant owns it. And there was a previous attempt to put out the Zenith books, and he said, no, I own this thing, and you haven't negotiated a contract with me to suggest that you can put this out again, and I've approved it. Thus far, nothing seems to be said. So not only is it an incredibly expensive, incredibly elitist, incredibly awkward format that bypasses the retailers, but it also seems to be completely not au fait with Grant Morrison, and that's probably a thing you don't want to do at this point. I would have thought, you know, what do you ask him what he wants? sort it out. If he doesn't want to do it, that's fine. It's his creation to do that with. I feel, I saw a few people tweeting like, oh, it's a bit of a moral quandary. It's like, it's not a moral quandary. You're not entitled to the material. You can buy it if you like, but you're not helping anyone out. It's just are you happy with paying to help screw over comic creators? Because it doesn't matter how rich Grant is, it's still his material. And I believe he should have the final say on how it's put out. And if he's okay with it. So I think this is a terrible waste and a shame. And I know some really good people work at Titan. I feel a bit bad saying this, but I do think whoever decided this, complete cock up and an absolute just a shame. One of the great opportunities to establish how good British comics could be, just thrown away for a very short-term monetary gain. I'm guessing you guys aren't massively aware of Zenith.
I only heard about it and it's been tweeted about it. I thought, that might be interesting, but my main problem with it is £100 for one comic, and I think is obscene. I just cannot believe that even no matter how rare, how good it is, I just think that charging £100 is terrible. It's too much.
Yeah. I'm someone who balks at spending more than £10 on any one comic. Do you know what I mean? And it'd have to be like Frank quietly adapting a Mark Twain thing as co-written and drawn by Ralph Stebbin for me to go that. £100 to me, that's silly money. Who does that? Who actually has that £100 to spend on something that isn't like an investment comic or anything like that? It's just madness. So, obviously quite annoyed about that from my end. So on better British comic news by far, some of you may be aware of a chap called Russell Willis, who is part of Panel 9, and this week they released the sequential digital comics app for the UK Apple Store. And it's amazing. I'm so happy about this. This is like it's the other end of Comixology, for want of a better description. This is like the stuff that people who are perhaps not so happy about the entire industry being dominated by men in tights, this is for them. This is a app that is going to have things by Dave Lloyd and Eddie Campbell from Hell's going to be on there. Hugo Tate by Nick Abadazias. Sorry, Nick, I've probably mispronounced it. But that's going on there quite soon. It's basically going to be your hub for good comics. And, as I said, From Hell's coming up. All kinds of really good things are on there. The Accidental Salad by Joe Dici's going to be on there. Science Tales by Daryl Cunningham, who's done lots and lots of good things. It's going to be great. And the app is free. Go there. There's lots of free comics on there. Just Google Sequential or go to the iOS store, look up Sequential and download it from there. Such a great thing. So happy to see something that doesn't suggest great monolithic. Aren't all superhero comics good? And here are some other things that I guess we have to stock unless they have breasts in them. So that's my news for this week, guys.
The only news I've got is actually something that was actually came out in February, but was very, very quiet, was that I found out that Amy Comic Girls on February of DC Comics put out a tweet saying that it is on hiatus, which I'm guessing now means cancelled. I said that's very, very old, but it's the first time I've actually seen anything about it. And I know some other people, I chatted to people on Twitter, didn't know about it. I think it's such a shame, since it was a really good, really fun series done by Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray, focusing on an alternate DC universe where all the heroes are women, and yes, they're wearing stupid costumes, and yes, the costumes are very sexualised, and yes, they can be really offensive, but it's a really strong, really funny series. And now they're not doing it anymore, and I don't know why. Maybe it's that they want to see how it does in print as well as something in digital, but it's such a shame. It's one of the actual strong, good series, far better than most of the current 52 stuff. And now it's not happening anymore. I'm quite cross about it.
Okie doke. Alright then, well I suppose then we're now into what we've been reading this week. Who would like to start?
I'll start. I got another Princeless issue out this week. Did you guys get it?
I've only just started the
not.
second volume. I've literally finished the first volume the other day, and I've read the first issue of the second volume today. I haven't got around to the new one yet.
Okay. Well, this one follows up from obviously the last issue, where Adrian is trying to rescue her sister Angelica, who is absolutely beautiful and seems to have a whole city around her dedicated to producing pictures of her and statues and putting baking for her and all this stuff. So Adrian turns up and tries to rescue her, and Angelica's not particularly interested in this. And so then this other knight with a cat head. Sorry? Right. There's somebody else turns up with a cat hat and starts fighting Adrienne. And it sort of all goes through from there. It's as the rest of the series is. Good, funny, still strong. I want more of it.
No, yeah, Princess. I'm glad this issue's carried on. The first issue I read, as I said today, guy, it's real. Got some real good humour and snark in there, and I'm glad it's carrying on its strongness. Is this how it's going to go then? Just because it seemed like to me that this first issue, it is like an ongoing series, right? It's not a limited series or anything. It's all going to carry on going. It's
ongoing. So it's released in volumes. So you had the first 4 issues, and now you've got the second 4 issues, and after this, I guess you're going to have the next 4, and so on and so on. Right.
Okay. Just wanted to know because it's premise it could keep going, but eventually it does seem like it does have an end to it. Because obviously, once she saved all her sisters, what's next? But yeah, I'm glad this thing exists.
This week, my main reads have been the sadly about to finish Savage Wolverine by Frank Cho, which, as you can probably hear in the background, listeners, I'm literally popping open and having a flick through again because I can't look at the first 5 pages enough. Do you know why? Because there's a big gorilla. There's a big gorilla and there's the Hulk, and it's ridiculous. It's like Frank Cho said, do you know what? I'm going to do everything I like doing, but in one Wolverine comic. And if you can get away with someone who looks like Shana and the gorilla and the Hulk, I think you're doing well. And this is leading to the final issue, which is apparently a lot more significant than we think because things are happening with Infinity, and apparently it might kick off from there, which is all probably incredibly interesting to someone. But to me, it's just like, this is such a fun comic, and it's just full of, like, let's just go with everything. And obviously it's a Frank Cho comic, so therefore it looks beautiful and it's funny. I can't say enough about it, that it's good.
Okie doke. Alright, well, on to, my comic for this week. Not a singular comic. It was a thing, a big kind of event. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with it, but it's Marvel's War of Kings kind of a thing, which takes place after the events of Annihilation, which, for those of you who don't know, Annihilus shows up from the negative zone, fucks a few people up, then gets beaten, and then goes. But it's left the fabric of space and time severely weakened, as you do. And so in War of Kings, various factions are vying for control. And the Inhumans, they've basically gone and said, hey Kree, we're gonna lead you. And Vulcan of the X-Men, a character who I wasn't familiar with until reading this, has taken over the Shi'ar and is expanding incredibly aggressively. So I suppose first things first. Wow. It is, for me, like, I've only ever been reading kind of stuff about, like, you know, superheroes in capes and tights and stuff like that. And only recently I've begun expanding out into other things. It's still superheroes, but superheroes in space. And for, like, I hated sci-fi for a while. And this has just kind of, like, drew me, like, straight back in. And it's introduced all these different characters to me. Like, I'm so pumped for the Guardians of the Galaxy movie now, after reading all the kind of the Guardians of the Galaxy tie-in stuff. Really, really good. And the art is absolutely fantastic. The name escapes me though. Nevs, do you know the artist behind any of the War King stuff?
I do not, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Okay, look, I have the issue somewhere around me. But yeah, the art is just amazing. Just, so good. And it bridges into Realm of Kings, which takes place after the events of War of Kings. So many kings. And Realm of Kings, considerably weaker. It's just Realm of Kings is how Thanos gets back into the equation.
If I remember correctly, Realm of Kings is what led into the last sort of arc of Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning's, like, epic space stuff.
Mm-hmm, it led into the Thanos Imperative stuff.
Yeah.
Which was good, but definitely can't top War of Kings.
So out of the whole entire what was it, like 5-year space epic? War of Kings was it for you, or did you prefer the most?
I actually preferred Annihilation Conquest, which,
Right, okay.
probably should have mentioned as well, which is, when the Phalanx take over all of the Kree worlds. And the Phalanx are such a great kind of like, villain kind of thing. They're just like, they represent everything that's great about an army that controls you, but doesn't control you properly. They just they let you have your free will, but the second you try and disobey them, it's boop, you've been zapped. And of course, Ultron's behind it all. And Ultron has like moved up into my pantheon of great villains. The only thing that lets him down is the whole kind of vanity. Instead of beating you all, I'm going to turn myself into a giant robot.
Well, everyone's got to have their little flaws. Alright, Luke, I've got a question for you. After reading this, what is next on your list of back stories of Marvel?
Well, I finished Thanos Imperative and I was kind of left a bit empty. So I'm probably going to move on to the Dark Reign and Siege stuff next, and Secret Invasion. So I'm going to reread that, and hopefully I'm waiting if they're going to do it's part of my mystery comics today. But hopefully some more Luther Strode stuff, which I really, really enjoyed. But what have you been reading?
This week is a lot of the mystery stuff. There was a book that stood out, but it was from last week. It came out last week, but I only read it this week. It's an IDW book called Half Past Danger, which is the cheesiest line in the world. I told Dan, and he just sort of groaned at it. It is by, let me double check who it's by, if it tells me. It's not going to tell me. Okay, well, let me quickly explain why I'm looking for the creative team is. It opens in World War II. A soldier is leading a group of men, a Japanese island, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, trolling for Nazi scouts and camps, and then they encounter some dinosaurs out of nowhere. Dinosaurs attack, eat them all except for one guy who escapes, and then you see him again in a New York bar, where he's approached by a English lady who's a bit uptight, a big brutish American blonde guy, and a Japanese guy who knows Kung Fu. Basically every single stereotype you can think of.
Yeah, I was about to say, stereotypes much?
Yeah, but that's kind of what I love about it. It's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek stereotype, old school. I don't know where it would fit in. It's not quite pulp, it's not quite wartime, because it's not in the war, it's a dinosaur war. But yeah, it was just fun. It was too quick for my liking. I think I flew through the issue relatively quickly. Someone, it's only got the last name, Stephen and Mooney. I can only make up their first names at the minute because the comic hasn't got their first names on them. Really nice art. I showed Dan the art and I think it sort of half sold him on the book. Storytelling wise, again, stereotypes, but I do believe they're all meant to be there. But yeah, I'm going to definitely keep on IDW. And I know Nev's has spoken about IDW a lot. Really good stuff. Not just the licensed stuff, but their own stuff as well. Like, for example, again, this week, but boy, last week was, the first volume of Lock and Key. Unbelievably good. I actually took them back a bit because I thought it was going to be like a Lion Witch in a Wardrobe kind of story. Turns out to be some really dark, messed up story. So bloody dark. Oh wait, it's just one creator, Stephen Mooney. I thought it was two last names, it was one name. That's a good way to lay out the creative team now, IDW. Yeah, so Lock and Key and Half Past Danger were my two books that stood out this week. I recommend both. Half Past Danger after Lock and Key, because Lock and Key is real dark. It won't leave you happy. Half Past Danger will make you smile at least once.
Did anybody else read X-Men 1? The Lady X-Men team.
Yes I did.
Did you like it?
I really did like it, yeah. I was waiting for this book for, 3 months?
It's been a while since it was announced, wasn't it? I hadn't read a whole lot of X-Men. I mean, I just started, friends gave me boxes and boxes of comics a little while ago, so now I've got a whole lot of 80s and 90s X-Men to read, where I'm gonna just dive in and see what I make of it. But this is the first proper sort of, I think it might be a good introduction, a good ongoing. Yeah, it was, for something that I don't know a lot about it before, the weird bacteria stuff I don't get, but the rest of it was really good fun. I think it might feel the whole Sorry,
go on.
I was going to say, I think it might feel the whole Left by Amy Commie girls given that if it is going to remain being a female-centric teen book, which hopefully it will do, it gives me something else to read. Now DC is failing me. But you guys.
No, it is going to be an all-female team book from what I've heard. I don't know what's going on with the bacteria from a million years ago, but I really liked it. The art, Coipel has always been a really strong artist. I've got some problems with it. Like some of the dialogue, Kitty Pryde going around saying OMG and whelp was a bit off-putting, seeing as it just sort of de-aged her in a way that didn't quite fit. She's meant to be the headmistress of a school, and she's
Really?
running around. Yeah, she's headmistress of the Jean Grey School, and you'll get to that. You'll get to that. Sorry, I didn't realise you haven't got there yet.
It's alright, I don't mind spoilers are out, but...
But for a headmistress to then go around saying whelp and OMG about 3 times, that was a bit weird. But all in all...
Some old people, using completely up-to-date vernaculars. I can't even imagine people who would do things like that, Bertie.
I'm not old.
Anybody in a position of responsibility who will also use young people's talk.
I'm not old and I'm not in any responsibility position. I can use whatever dialogue I want if that was aimed at me.
And no, I wasn't having a personal dig at you. I was suggesting that perhaps people who have positions of responsibility and are a bit old can also use vernacular of the modern times.
Well, no, I just don't know. I don't know anyone, young or old, has ever said OMG as a real thing that hasn't typed it.
Oh,
Really?
I do, but...
Yeah,
Really?
You're like mid-30s, so...
Never heard someone say OMG. Oh my Lord, oh my days, oh my Jesus, oh my God, but never
What about
OMG. Pardon?
Zong? Not heard that?
No. That's a sound effect from the Kirby days, isn't it?
Lol.
I have told this friend.
Yeah, it just bugs me whenever people say lol as well. Anyway, we're getting a bit off topic here. The dialogue, it was just dialogue put me off. It's on those little bits here now. But it's all strong issue. The art is the thing that stands out the most. Coipel can draw the hell out of fucking Storm. Jesus. The whole
How long
train.
has Storm had a mohawk for?
About 6 months. She cut it off after
months.
snorking Wolverine in a issue of Wolverine and the X-Men. When
Yeah.
they were establishing she was a headmistress.
Wolverine actually gave her that haircut.
The haircut.
Yeah.
Because I knew she had a haircut, she had the mohawk in the 80s, so I was delighted to pick this up and saw she had the mohawk again.
Yeah.
That's my thing about liking hairstyles in comics.
It's,
It was kind of the end of her going out with T'Challa, I think. It was a kind of like, okay, I'm moving on now and I need to do something to establish it, so apparently moving on means having sex with Wolverine and getting a mohawk.
She had sex with Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
Look at these spoilers we're throwing at you here, there and everywhere.
It's not really they're doing it on the front cover. Well, they're not
Yeah,
doing
they are.
I haven't seen it.
So Wolverine the X-Men issue 20 something, they're locking lips.
Oh.
But yeah, Mohawk Storm's the best Storm, Sarah.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Nez, what did you think of the issue?
Do you know what? It got on my nerves. I'm going to tell you why. Because I've lived through basically the X-Men comics that Sarah is about to read, and the X-Men were like the bane of my life as a working comic shop retailer for so long. It was like, okay, I basically have to try and explain this madness and why someone's got a robot for an uncle and they're from the future and then their eyes are glowing, and it wasn't really them who died, it was their twin from Dimension X, and then Mojo made a clone or something. And it was just so easy to write off as like, okay, the X-Men are just some people running about shouting. And now, between this X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, All New X-Men, and X-Factor, and Wolverine the X-Men, all the X-Men comics are really good. And I was hoping this was going to be rubbish, so I could say, at least there's one X-Men comic I don't have to read. But no, it's Brian Wood, so it's written really well, as usual, and all the characters are really well fleshed out, and there's a plot that makes sense, and is about things that aren't quite as surface as you might think. And it's drawn by Oliver Copiel, who's turning into the next Travis Charest. So obviously it's brilliant. So that's one more X-Men comic I have to read on the grounds that it's really good. So yes, I enjoyed the hell out of it. The artwork was fantastic. It was well written. I wanted to know what happened next. It was nice to see Rogue doing something that wasn't basically shouting at Wanda Maximoff again, because that particular vein might have been milked a bit too hard now, guys. So yeah, can't say enough good things about it.
I'm actually going to quickly end on saying that this will be the only X-Men book I'll be picking up.
Really? You're not
Yeah.
reading Wolverine X-Men?
Not continuously. I'll pick up issue here and there, but this will be the only one I will continuously pick up each month.
Missing out, dude. Uncanny X-Men was drawn by Fraser Irvin last month. Who's
Well-
one of the best people to ever draw anything ever. You owe
As
me a
it stands at the minute, all new X-Men, Wolverine X-Men, and Uncanny X-Force, I'm picking up whenever people tell me there's a decent issue. Whereas this one, I won't need anyone telling me anything. It'll just be on my own whim picking it up. So if you ever got any issues to throw at me for those three, throw them up.
Alright. So I think we all agree X-Men one's just rather good then.
Yep, we'll have to wait.
Okay, what's our next comic?
I think we've got mystery comics to go into, guys. Cue music, Lucas.
Do do do.
Do. Alright, guys, who wants to open with the 3 mystery comics, and which one? I'll say Lucas, you open.
Okay, well, I suppose we can start off with Luther Strode.
Let's do it.
Okay, that's the first on our Mystery Comics agenda. So, for those of you who don't know, Luther Strode is basically about a nerdy high school kid who gets a book on how to basically get hench. It turns out that it's not just a book on getting hench. It grants you basically Dragon Ball Z powers. So, it goes from nerdy, skinny kid, trying to get the girl, yada yada yada, to, oh my god, I'm karate chopping people in half, and putting people's arms down other people's throats. It is absolutely fantastic. It's like a gore fest. It's like if Dragon Ball Z was like an 18 rated thing. And, I mean, the first panel is him pushing bullets out of his muscles. Oh, and for those of you who don't know what hench means, hench is a muscular physique. Okay, but yeah, no, it's really, really good. But what did you think of it?
I really liked it. Let me quickly tell you the team on it. Writer Justin Jordan, artist Trad Moore, colouring Philippe Sobrerio. However I don't know how you say that one. Really liked it. Heavy on the anime kind of style-ish, like manga-ish, like in the heavy action scenes. But yet with, obviously, it's comic book, so it's Western. Really liked it. I liked the story for the characters more than the action, but the action was brilliant. Yeah, seeing a man flick out his own tooth and kill a man with it.
Yeah, that was quality. This is
something I was sitting there thinking, I want this to be a film, a cartoon, a fighting game, and I want more of it. So good. But yet, it's like one of those books, nothing happy happens in it. You won't be happy after reading it. Go on, Lucas.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, if you're reading this expecting a happy ending, just don't read it. It is not happy in any way, shape or form.
The traditional formula of hero gets powers, hero wins, everyone lives happy ever after does not exist in this. Saying that, you don't really care afterwards at the same time. It's like he doesn't win, yeah, so like, but you're not gonna build, I'm really sad for him.
It kind of, it's built, yeah, you feel sad for him, but it's kind of built the foundations for like a hero.
Yeah, I do believe there is a second miniseries, The Legend of Luther Strode. I haven't got around to that one yet. But Dan tells me it's not as strong. But that could be because of the gaps in between. It's like written a whole year after this. But that, I don't know. Definitely got one of my favourite villains of the
Oh yeah, the
times.
Librarian. He's absolutely great. He's like if Alfred could karate chop people in half.
Yes.
There seems to be a recurring theme here.
Not just karate chop people in half, like nail his best friend to a door, kick his dad's face in so it explodes.
I mean, I really don't want to spoil something, but he's in one of my favourite panels, which is when somebody dies who kind of was not Luther's intended target. And he's like, hey, what's up? I just made you kill certain person.
And he doesn't care. I could just, you know what, I could just go through his book and tell everyone every of the best, like, scenes. There's a scene where Luther grabs someone's spine and rips it out with the head still attached.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
it's so good.
The bit with the hand down the throat when he kills a guy using his own, cut off arm. It's like it may be my. This is
Lucas,
my sadistic.
We are so disturbed, man.
We are, but it's really, really good as well.
Yeah, I love it.
Like, it's rare for me to be this enthusiastic about something, but, you know, I really, really enjoyed it.
Same here, man.
Just seeing, like the bully, you know, the bully who keeps coming back to fight him.
Oh,
and
every time
he gets knocked, like, his teeth smashed out.
he gets his, what was it? His neck nearly came round where he got punched so hard. Just, I don't want to. We can't go too far into it because we want the listeners to read it. But yeah, read it and let us know what you thought of this over the top. Oh man, I'm just looking at the flashback scene where it tells you the origin of this book. Never mind. No, seriously, read it. Give us your opinions. Did you two read it, Sarah and Nevs?
I haven't read it.
I read
I'm
it.
now intrigued.
Nevs, did you say you have?
I've read it, yeah.
I'm guessing you don't like it.
I really like the artwork. I thought the artwork was really imaginative, and I thought the layouts were pretty interesting. I thought I don't know if that's the work of the artist or the writer doing the descriptions, but I thought some of the deaths, especially in the first issue, were interesting. There were some variations on using people's intestines as weapons that I hadn't actually seen before, so I like that. On the whole, like, basically, I get thrown mystery comics, same as the other, and my rule is I'll read issue 1, and if there's anything as with every comic, if I feel compelled to read beyond issue 1, I will. And if I don't, I won't. Guess what I didn't do? I didn't read beyond issue 1 because I don't like to judge things by their cover, but I do believe that any comic in itself ought to be entertaining of its own merits. And the best example in the world of that is Stray Bullets by David Lapham. You can pick up any issue of that 50 or 60 issue run of comics, and it's like a movie, a really intense, in-depth movie in a comic, and you get so much story, and you get so much density and so much character, which makes more sense if you read them with the other issues, but you generally never have to. And I think that's really raised the bar from what I expect of one individual comic. And this was every single horrible cliche in the world. It was just like, if you've never read Flex Mantello, then yes, this might be interesting. If you've never read anything by Jeff Darrow, then yes, it might be interesting. If you have read those things, then it's kind of like, you know, you've gone eating in a steakhouse that's like really guys who really know what they're doing about making steak, and then your next meal is McDonald's. I'm sorry, I know you guys were really into it. I thought it was such a horrible bunch of cliches slapped together. It was like I was writing the thing in my head after I got the second panel. I was like, oh yeah, maybe they'll do an interesting twist. But no, it's actually all going exactly how I thought it would. So yeah, really good artist. I hope he moves on to lots of other good things, which are great and are like really worthy of how good he is. And maybe the guy's written other stuff that I haven't read. But this was just a horrible walking cliche fest, and really stuff that the whole genre should have gotten over sometime in the mid-70s when it was all old and tired then. Sorry. I like the cover though.
That's alright, I like cliches. Sometimes, you know, what's that saying? They're cliches for a reason. Basically, if you want to see people stuff their intestines back in their stomach, read it. If you'd rather not, leave it. Right, what's the next book on the list, guys?
Next up, let's go with Mara.
Let's go with Mara. I can see what your ordering is doing. I think I can see why. Right, Mara, by Brian Wood, Ming Doyle, and Geordie Belair. Who wants to open us on Mara?
Go on, because I feel like I should be the agitator of nice now.
Alright then.
How good was this? It was so much fun. I'm a sucker for most Brian Wood comics anyway. I've been a fan of his all the way back to Channel Zero and The Couriers and all the AIT Planet Last stuff and The Tourist and Demo and all that great stuff. And this is just more of him being really good. The guy can't take a genre and not make something interesting out of it. And by God, I've not read many comics about volleyball in space with superpowers. But, you know, he brought something new to that medium as well. So yeah, beautiful artwork. It was really reminiscent of like a cross between P. Craig Russell and Chris Sprouse. And, you know, I can't imagine the dude's got a lot to work with for previous reference. With most sports comics, he can probably knock out a few issues of Sports Illustrated and a copy of Photoshop, you know, but with this, like, where do you even begin to start drawing this? But, guy nailed it. Really well done, really strong characterization, such a good arc in the first issue. You go, oh wow, I wonder what happens after this. So yeah, one of the good things about Image, you know, is like you can take any concept, and if you've got a good enough name or you're an interesting enough artist, you can go, this might work really well, take a chance on it. And they did. So yeah, I'm quite happy. Lots of good things to be said about Mara, and I highly recommend all of you read it. So that's what I thought of Mara. Sarah, you read it. What do you think?
Yeah, I really wasn't impressed at all. And I think it's essentially because it's a sports comic. And I don't really care whether it's sports in space or sports in the future, which might usually hook me into something. But maybe it's because I'm not particularly naturally athletic or anything, but I've just got no interest in reading about it. And nothing pulled me in. I mean, some of the art was alright, but I didn't think it was anything particularly special. I won't be following this up at all. I'm quite surprised that you liked it so much.
Boys?
I enjoyed it for pretty much all the same reasons you did, Nevs. Also, I'm intrigued by the mysteryness of the whole powers, and doesn't seem like she knows she's got them or whatever. I'll keep reading it. Might trade weight on it though. I think it'd be better in bulk than in single issues. Lucas, what do you think?
I didn't like it. Echoing Sarah, it's sports, and it's, you know, not wanting to spoil anything for you, I just didn't find that it interesting or engaging. Maybe I didn't really give it a chance, and maybe it is, like you said, a trade thing, but I just did not enjoy it. It was not up my alley.
Fair enough. Okay, what's the next mystery comic, Lucas?
Next mystery comic is The Wake by Scott Snyder and somebody help me out here.
Sean Murphy.
Okie doke. Right, well, I'll let one of you guys start off and I will share my views.
Alright, Nev, you start off.
How good was this comic?
Really good?
So good? Real good.
Yeah, I loved it so much. I'm such a mark for Sean Gordon Murphy. I've been a fan of his since I discovered Joe the Barbarian, which was a mini-series he did with Grant Morrison a little while back. And then he did this astoundingly fun comic called Punk Rock Jesus, and now he's doing this. And he's one of those guys who I'm just enjoying watching him evolve from already quite amazing to probably going to be like super genius level within about 3 or 4 years. I must confess, when I thought it was going to be something nautical, I was like, oh, okay. But the whole setup is there's an incredibly genius lady who knows about all kinds of underwatery stuff, and she gets lured onto this ship under those purposes. But then everyone else on the ship has also been given some kind of cover story. And as soon as we all know who these characters are, who are all quite interesting and well fleshed out, and all have their own stories to carry through, things go wrong incredibly quickly. And it's great. And it's Scott Snyder, who's been writing Batman and also the much better American Vampire. So I'm in, guys. I actually made it like my comic of the week at the shop, thinking like, you know, well, maybe it'll need the push. And then we sold out of all of our copies in a day, including the copy I put aside for myself. So I had to go and get my copy off Comixology, which is slightly annoying, but nonetheless, loved it. Really. I had pretty much written off the whole Vertigo line of DC is dead, and this has made me go, okay, this is probably the most interesting Vertigo comic there's been in at least 5 years, maybe even 10. Well, I'd say Demo, but Demo was actually a different book. But anyway, I'm waffling, so guys, run on The Wake.
It's funny you should... Oh, sorry, go on, Lucas, you go.
Okay, yeah, it was really, really good. I was kind of like... I was wary at first, but like... It kind of, for me, it was a bit slow to start. And then there's the whole, I don't really want to spoil it, but basically they show you something at the end, and I was like, yep, I'm picking up issue 2, because that thing looks cool. And, yeah, it looks interesting. You have to read it.
I'm going to quickly say,
it doesn't... You ever.
It's funny you should say it's a Vertigo book, because I kept forgetting it was a Vertigo book. Doesn't feel like one, it sort of feels like an Image book. Just in, I don't know, weirdness of it. Brilliant Scott Snyder writing, that suspense, horror-y kind of weird mystery he does. That's their full force. And Sean Murphy's art, Jesus. It reminds me of like the olden days, but not olden days. So nice, a little bit scratchy in places, but like really good scratchy, murky. Obviously, it makes sense it'd be murkiest, but how many leagues under the sea? Yeah, really, really nice. Again, I'm going to quickly mention the colorist because that seems to be my thing. I'm going to try and do is Matt Hollingsworth, best last name ever. Yeah, really good. I'm going to carry on with this, and I recommend everyone else do the same. Sarah, did you read The Wake?
I did. I only did a quick read through it. Echoing what you said about the colorist, I was quite pleased when I got to the credits to see Matt Hollingsworth and also the letterer Jared K. Fletcher on there. I like a lot of stuff that those guys have done. So, I mean, that was about all I knew about it going into it. And then to see that it is set sort of in the sea, there's all this water stuff. I tend to like stories set around the sea. I just think you can do a lot with the artwork. So, yeah, it was quite intriguing. I don't know how much of it I took in, but I know enough to know that I would like to read more of it. So, yeah, great. I'm glad I got to read it.
Okay, so all round, this is the only book everyone's enjoyed. Yeah, all in all, definitely read it. Again, Scott Snyder, Sean Murphy, Vertigo. Really, really good. The Wake. And that brings us to the end of Mystery Comics, guys. Outro music. Lucas, now.
Bam, 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 bam.
Nice. Okay, question time, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies. Who's got the first question for us?
Shall I go first?
Ladies
Yeah,
first.
I've got a question from @yeah off of Twitter. Actually, I've got a couple of questions. First one is, any thoughts on Dynamite's pulp line? He says he's hooked on the Black Bat and he's loving the look of Wade's Green Hornet. Now, I don't know a lot about this at all, so you guys are probably going to have to talk.
Okay, Nevs, do you want to do this or me?
You're a more positive individual, Bertie. I think you should go.
I'll tell you what, I'll do it, and then you can come in with your side.
Negativity.
I like all pulp. I don't know why. I've just always been drawn to pulp. The Rocketeer, Shadow, even the Spirit. I guess he's pulp. Green Hornet, and so on. From Dynamite at the moment, I haven't got around to all of it, but I read the Shadow, the Garth Ennis opener, which is really nice, really strong. It was Garth Ennis doing what he does best, really, so you can't go wrong there. And Masks, I read that mostly for Francesco Francavilla, which involves, it's basically like a team-up book with every pulp hero, the Green Llama, Green Hornet, Shadow, a Zorro, Lone Ranger, I think Lone Ranger. Anyway, yeah, pulp, they're really good, but a lot of them are hit and miss. Like, a lot of the Green Hornet never grabbed me, which is weird because I kind of like the idea of Green Hornet. I can't remember, I think it was a Green Hornet book where one of the art was just so weirdly out there. It was just jarring on my mind. A bit disappointed on a lot of them because they open with something like Alex Ross's covers and then you don't get any. It's like Alex Ross really pushes it and it's like, how about you do more than just one issue, mister? You know, I know you're a bit, you know, really good and maybe a bit slow, but it doesn't mean you can't push yourself that little bit. But yeah, I'd recommend it. Masks, because it's a good introduction to all the characters, and from there you can pick your favourites. Or just the Shadow. If you want to pick one, I'll just recommend the Shadow straight up. Yeah. And the Rocketeer from IDW is not part of Dynamites, which we're talking about, but the Rocketeer is really good. Mark Waid and Chris Samney's one I just finished up. The Cargo of Doom. And all I can say is it has dinosaurs fighting a man with a rocket jetpack. It's sold me, and it was really good. Nebs, what's your downside to it? Tell us.
I'm not as down as some people might think. I'm down on things I don't like and up for things I do like. It's a natural human being, really. My problem with the Dynamite kind of pulp stuff, I'm a massive pulp fan and can cite all the same things as you quite happily as influences, like the Carl Baker and Bill Sienkiewicz Shadows, or the Doc Savage's stuff, or God, so much. I love really good, genuine pulp. Notice the emphasis.
Yeah.
I think Dynamite put out a great many good things. The Boys and Battlefield being totally off the top of my head, are really awesome comics I've massively enjoyed. The problem I have with the pulp stuff is it's too studied. It's like an exercise in what pulp in the 1930s would have been like, rather than genuine pulp. Do you know what I mean? Like, when Dashiell Hammett and Mike Hammer and, God, no, so many good people who I'm forgetting now, or Harlan Ellison were writing pulp, right? They were basically writing in the times they were living in. It didn't start out as a style. It was just, they wrote like that because it was appropriate for the format to get things out quickly. So you got these amazing paintings, and then you got stuff that happened to be really well written, but was basically, we must hit the deadlines by this time. And I think the problem I have with Dynamite's pulp line is it's too studied. It's too desperately trying to be that, and that's kind of like the difference between the Beatles and any guitar band from 2000 upwards. It's like if you're being really mean about it, it's like a difference between Beatles and Oasis. It's, here's us taking these influences, and we might as well be wearing a big sign saying, we really like it when ladies don't wear very much but run about in the night fighting crime. Like, yeah, we get it. But it's like a period piece that's got no energy to it. I do find Alex Ross's covers to be a bit too obviously photo-referenced, and I've seen the guy draw when he's not using the camera, where he's just drawing off the top of his head. And when he does that, he can run rings around everyone. You look at the stuff he drew when he was 12 years old in some sketchbooks, and like, dude, this guy's better than most of the people working for DC now. So that's my main problem with it, is that it's an exercise in homage, and I don't think there's very much actually to draw you back. The Shadow by Garth Ennis being a great exception. If you've never read the Howard Chaykin Shadow series from the 80s that made Harlan Ellison nearly have a heart attack, that's well worth checking out. I'm a big fan of pulp. I just like the real stuff and not the tribute man stuff.
Was that Howard Chaykin Shadow where it brought the Shadow into the 80s?
Yes, that's the 4-issue Prestige thing that then leads to the Bill Sienkiewicz and Andy Helfer and Carl Baker thing, which are all great comics. I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as a bad Shadow comic. There's the thing that's had, Michael Kaluta draw it as well. But, yeah, I mean, the Shadow is a standout thing from that line, but that's a comic that would have been good from any publisher. Because the Shadow's bounced around publishers over the years.
Yeah. Okay, so that's our views on Dynamite and pulp. What's the next question?
We've got another one from Yeah. If you want that now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Where he's asked, what's important to remember when reviewing?
Nevs, I'm going to let you and Sarah do this one because me and Lucas, we're more newer.
I suppose, in general, just my views on it is just to not be, I suppose, biased against it or for it. Just try and review it from a neutral point.
Be objective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think smart. I was going to say, I think it's quite important to know who you're writing for. So if you're writing or if you're talking for people who already know comics, if they know the genres you're talking about, if you're writing for people who don't know comics, you need to, if they don't know comics, you need to make sure you're clarifying what you're talking about, you're being clear, you're not using jargon, stuff like that. I mean, I suppose it's sort of pretty obvious to say that really, but it is, you've got to be clear in your messages. And if you're writing stuff out, it does help to proofread and check things for spelling errors, which I am terrible at doing, but I know it's a good thing and I try to do them. But I often fail. Nevs.
Hello. Well, I've got a different background to it in that I've spent quite a lot of time over the years basically having to try and sum things up very quickly for customers who are like, what is this book? And you end up saying things like, well, a bloke gets possessed by the voice of God, accompanied by an Irish vampire and his ex-girlfriend, who's now a trained CIA assassin, and they go to fight God.
Preacher?
And it's really good. Yes, exactly.
Summary.
So I kind of review in a way that I'm thinking, how do I explain this concept to somebody who doesn't know where they're coming from in the first place? And you kind of ascertain where the audience is coming from. So if they're wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, you could probably start talking about the history of Ben Reilly or something. But I think the important thing to remember, I think actually Lucas has nailed it really well, is to be so objective that you go, okay, for example, I know this is a new comic by Alan Moore, So the chances are I'm going to like it. But it doesn't mean I will like it. It just means the possibilities increase that the Alan Moore comic you'll enjoy. And equally, there may be a new Rob Liefeld comic coming out. And my natural instinct is to go, I've read pretty much everything else the guy's done, so it's probably not going to be to my taste. But it doesn't mean it's definitely not going to be to my taste. So I think Lucas has absolutely nailed the whole argument. I think he just kind of go, see this thing for what it is without any preconceptions when describing it. I think that's a hell of an important thing, and I think, to be honest, he's completely trumped everything I could have said about it.
One of the other things I'll say to that is it also depends on what it is you want to review as well. I mean, one of my blogs is basically recommending comics for people who don't really know comics. So I pretty much only write about stuff that I like, which makes it a lot easier. So if you're doing that, then no, I don't need to be objective, because I want to endorse this comic and I want people to read it, and I just want to explain why it's good, where it sits amongst the rest of the comics literature that's out there. Maybe how it stacks up against prose or movies or something like that, if that's relevant. But it does make it easier in terms of the objectivity thing, because I only do write about stuff that I like. Makes it more pleasant for me as well when I'm writing the review, because I don't really like spending a lot of time guessing about stuff that I dislike. It sort of sucks your soul a bit if you're writing about yet another bad comic and explaining why it's bad, so I just don't do that.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, obviously it's easier, it's more fun to write about things that you like, and it's much more fun saying, and this is why I like this thing. I do think it is good practice to try and to articulate the point you're trying to make over something you don't like. And I think it's a really bad trope that's especially bad for Twitter, where people get the impression that I don't like this means it's objectively bad. And I think being forced to quantify your opinions on both sides, whether you like a thing, you have to say, this is why I like it. And you have to remember this, it's a subjective I like. Today's thing about well, I demand this person read the new Doctor Who. Really? Based on what? Well, that's what I want. It's like, that's not an argument. You have to say, why don't you like the new issue of, trying to think of a comic I don't like at the moment, why don't you like Superior Spider-Man, hypothetically? So, well, because I don't like the direction, I don't like the characterization, and I think it's, too decompressed and stuff. But you have to actually say, this is why I like and don't like a thing. I don't think I like this because I like it, and that's an argument, is actually an argument.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to infer that you shouldn't explain why. It's more about spending time on, again, what is the point you're reviewing and who are you reviewing for? I think that needs to come into it. But yeah, of course, if something is good or bad, you do need to explain why, otherwise it makes no sense. And it is just, as you say, like Twitter, lots of people shouting. I mean, it's just my experience of Twitter. Lots of people shouting ill-informed, short statements, which don't really help anybody. They don't really prompt discussion. They don't really prompt any sort of learning. And if you're doing a review, I think the aim is maybe not to teach people, but to, give them the detail. You've got a responsibility as a reviewer to give them details, give them the background. And if you're reviewing stuff, I think people probably expect a certain amount of expertise from the reviewer. So, I mean, God knows why they're reading my stuff, but if you see what I mean, you do need to put in that explanation.
Okay, next question is from @Butterface Cupcake Man. Completely a real Twitter. It is, I hear a lot about writers, artists and colourers, but do you feel letterers get the respect they deserve? And with this, I'm going to say that it's weird, a good letterer shouldn't be noticed on the page. But at the same time, they should be noticed for not being noticed, if you know what I mean. Which is completely weird and sort of paradoxist.
I don't fully agree with that. I think some letterers can add something to the story, and you do notice the letters, but that's because they're matching the style and the themes of the story with the action and the events and the artwork as well. So sometimes it does work. I'm thinking of I'll have to come back to you about the book I'm thinking about.
Well, I know what you're talking about. If you read Journey into Mystery, Clayton Cowles the letterer, he does a really good sort of the Shakespearean style, is which I'm going to call it, to go with the Weldon. But he will mix it up, so everyone's got, a lot of people have their different style letters because they're different speech, and it's all really good. But you don't really notice it until you sort of like, after a while you'll notice it, but it's not something that stands out and pops at you, which isn't a terrible thing.
Yeah.
If it does, then I think you're a bit too distracted with, oh, this is really nice. I don't know what it's saying, but it's really nice.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Todd Klein's work on Black Orchid and Creatures of the Night, where the lettering does really bring something to the artwork and looks to be part of the artwork as well, and that makes it's one of the things that make the books really special, I think.
Alright, I'll tell you, the one thing I'm going to quickly say this about a letter is it bugs me when they do the handwriting style. As if it's been written by the handwriting style, as if it's been written by a real person.
Yeah, it's awful.
It does my head in. I like the idea that you're reading it like a letter, but sometimes I don't know what the words say. I don't know any human that writes like that. But that's a little side note. Yeah. That's me.
Said that, Creatures of the Night, that's written with a handwriting style, and actually that works really well, but that's an exception to that general rule.
Yeah, a lot of them are hard, some not so much. But yeah, do you two, Lucas and Nev, do you have a view on this, the letterers of the creative team?
I don't know. I suppose they're important.
You suppose?
I know. Well,
I suppose the letterers should be there because
is it important enough to be like kind of noticed? I mean, obviously without a letterer, then
imagine what this comic book would be like without a letterer.
Yeah, exactly. If a comic book doesn't have a letterer, I think it's fine the way it is. They're on the page. It says, written by, drawn by, lettered by, coloured by. Your name's on there. It's all cool.
That's a really good way of looking at it, I suppose.
No, at least your name's there. They could just take you off entirely, but then we probably wouldn't have any letterers.
Yeah. And have you ever read any books with bad letters? I mean, it does.
Oh God. Sorry, I was having a flashback as soon as you had that question in mind.
Yeah. They ruin books when you've got bad letters.
There's I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a massive Chris Bachalo fan, right? As in the guy who drew Shade the Changing Man and long runs of the X-Men and Amazing Spider-Man. And he put together this, apparently it was like one of his life's work projects as part of the Cliffhanger line that Wildstorm introduced a few years ago. Does this ring any bells with anyone so far?
No.
No.
Right, okay. Well, Cliffhanger was basically this side project from Wildstorm, and it was like Joe Madeira writing Battle Chasers, and J. Scott Campbell doing Danger Girl, and Humberto Ramos doing Crimson, and they decided to do another book, and it was Chris Bachalo's Steampunk. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be this guy doing whatever the hell he wants and not having to adhere to anybody's script. This is going to be amazing. And the preview art looks so good, and the covers look so good, and then there was the preview. And the lettering, like, the book was already incredibly cramped in that there was at least 10 to 15 panels per page. And then you've got every character apparently had their own font, but not only did they have their own font, but it would switch sizes and colours within a single speech bullet. And I was really trying so hard, because I don't mind, I'm on the side of difficult stuff. Like, Stray Toasters by Bill Sienkiewicz is one of my favourite comics. It's like, I don't mind working my way through a comic through, like, difficult themes or obscurest artwork or whatever. But when I'm fighting the actual lettering, I was like, I can't do this. I really wanted to like this book, but I just cannot, I literally genuinely cannot read it. That's literally the worst example of lettering I've ever seen. It is, like, one of my personal Vietnams in comics, But, speaking on that, I've got this theory about all comic-related art, not just lettering actually, is that I think it should all almost be an invisible work. I get really aggravated when artists go like, oh, by the way, I've decided to kind of abandon the script a little bit so I can show off this really cool panel or something, or do a double page spread or something, or when they're writing something and it's not because it fits within the script, they just decided they're going to throw in something clever. I can't remember which book it was, but there was one point where the story went completely off the rails because the writer decided he was going to write a whole issue dedicated to why everyone should have heard of Godspeed You Black Emperor. I was like, this literally has nothing to do with the narrative, does it? This is just you having a rant via one of your fictional characters. I really actually like it if the credits were at the end of the comic, because it would remove the preconception. And I kind of want to be... I'm basically a big believer in the concept of the glamour of a story. You know, I want to not think, oh, I'm reading a really cool Alan Moore comic and he said a clever line, or I'm reading a really well-drawn Adam Hughes thing, and then I'm noticing the background panels, because that destroys the actual narrative and destroys the whole being caught up in the story, and then you realise you're reading a comic, which you obviously are, but you're not quite as brought into it, you're too aware. And, yeah, I'm not saying that letterers don't deserve credit or artists don't deserve credit. I just think the whole notion shouldn't be about superstar artists or superstar writers. I think the notion should be about trying to create the best stories that you can. And when you get someone like Dave Sim, for example, who's a spectacularly good letterer, the whole thing is basically, how can I make this story work, not how can I show off my particular new interesting artistic technique that derails the story because I'm now drawing a 50-foot dragon with cross-hatching. That's what I think.
Okay, that is the end of that question. Any more questions, guys?
We got a question from Marcus on Facebook saying that MCMS Expo was last week, asking us, did we go, what did we think, and do we think it's disingenuous that they've renamed it London Comic Con? I didn't go, I'm a bit far away, but I think some of you guys did.
Yep, we went.
Yep, we did.
Lucas, what did you think?
Well, the thing is it's not really London Comic Con, is it? It's London, con.
Anime con with some comics thrown in.
With a small comic section in the side, Nothing really particularly... I could go on for ages about how it's not a comic con. But, yeah, go on, Bert.
Right. The whole renaming, I'm not sure why, mate. I couldn't fathom a guess why they did it. There is a London Super Comic Con in February. Maybe it's to go in line with that. I have no idea. Maybe one of you three have a different or knowledge of that or opinion of that. As for what I think of it, it was, as I said last week, it was weird. We've got some videos up and some video interviews up on our We Are Arcade and our BAMF page on Facebook, I do believe, where you will see some of the weirdness, some of the strange. Fun, definitely worth going at least once. Maybe I wouldn't do the whole weekend, but yeah, it's anime heavy. So if you're not into anime, you don't want to see any free hug signs, I'd avoid it. Maybe go to the one in February. Maybe wait for Kapow to come back. But it's good to go to just for a day out or something.
Yeah, I went to MCM a couple of years ago. It wasn't really my bag, but I only went to see Bernard Chang, who was doing Supergirl at the time, drawing it, not writing it. But I did go to London Super Comic Con last year and this year, and I really, really enjoyed that. That is a proper comic convention. So there were tons of writers and artists there to go and chat to. Obviously lots of people dressed up in cosplay and far more actual comics, American superhero stuff, which made me happier because I'm not really a big anime manga thing. And the crowd was a bit older as well, which is good for me because I'm not a teenager or anywhere near being a teenager. Whereas I found at MCM it was all quite young. So that's just not for me, but I understand why people like it. But yeah, LSCC I found more enjoyable. And I've also been up to Thought Bubble in Leeds. Leeds? Yeah, which is great. It's a little indie show. There's hardly any big artists there, but the feel of it is completely different. And there's such a great range of different types of good comics from just the British scene. It's well worth going to.
I'm glad you said that, because me, Fee and Lucas are planning a trip up there in November. Yeah,
I'll probably go again. It was great. It was really good talks as well.
Wicked. But yeah, you should definitely check out our videos with the interviews. You get to see me and my beautifully ugly face, and you might even spot Lucas in the background fishing somewhere.
Fishing for people.
Look for the really tall guy with curly hair, possibly grabbing Batman from behind.
Also, if you want to hear something slightly more positive about the expo, then definitely check out our sister show, Anime UK, and you get to hear more positive things. So, yeah, check that out if anime and video games are your thing. Okay, and we have one more question, I believe. It's completely escaped me now, but
Is it the one from Andrew?
yes, it is the one from
Right,
Andrew.
the one from Andrew, who I do believe probably the Andrew from Goddamn, our sort of brother, sister podcast from Where Arcade, saying if Magneto, or as Lucas likes to say, Magneto, had to get a normal job, what would it be? I imagine he
Magneto
would
would be great as like a guy who puts stuff in a skip.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy he'd be.
I was going to say he'd work really good in the post office, but that's even better.
Yeah, I mean, just, levitate.
Just
I
there
was
you
going to
go.
say a car mechanic. Lots of
Yeah, car mechanic as well.
work. I'm sure we can work out how cars work.
How about a really, really cheap magician?
Yeah.
Just like, watch me move this piece of metal. No, oh, look at that.
That's the official sound effect for Magneto's powers. No.
No.
You guys laugh, but now every time I'm going to read Magneto's dialogue in a comic, I'm going to think of it being spoken by Uri Geller.
Oh, come on, man.
If we're going to
That
go
would
for
be
maybe a
awesome.
slightly more normal job, which doesn't involve using his powers, he can be an ice cream salesman and do a special ice cream called a Magneto.
Yes.
Ha ha.
That's time to end the show.
Yep, and on that note, everybody get Magnetos. I'm so happy that me saying Magneto has become a thing now.
Hashtag Magneto.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
better than one we couldn't use.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't use that other one. Right, guys. We're going to say goodbye. We're going to just... right, we're going to say goodbye. Let's all say goodbye around in the table. Sarah, say goodbye. Thank you for joining us again, by the way.
Goodbye and thank you for inviting me.
That's okay. Nevs, say goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a good week.
Lucas, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Right, that's Lucas laughing or crying, I'm not sure. And I'm going to say goodbye. Don't forget you can check us out on Twitter and Facebook. Go to We Are Arcade also for our lovely, lovely stuff. Go to our YouTube channel or We Are Arcade itself for our interviews at MCM Comic Con. While you're at We Are Arcade, check out sister podcast, Anime UK, and our other sister podcast, Goddamn Comic podcast. Yeah. And that's it.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
www.wearearcade.com